Hey guys, welcome back to My Sports Vice. This is Jeff. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're listening on through iTunes or our website, I appreciate it. But we also have a YouTube channel now, so you can see the video. It's on YouTube, My Sports Vice, one word. So it's the new age. We're on TV now, so. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's talk about tight ends. This is the tight ends top 20 for the draft. I actually just had a draft, and it was a PPR league, and I was able to get Jimmy Graham in the 13th round, which was surprising. I know his stock has dropped a little bit. He didn't play very well last season, but he missed most of the season with an injury. But we'll get to him in a little while. I have him ranked number 11. Obviously, number one, right off the bat, Rob Gronkowski. There's no dispute there. He's probably the most, besides Antonio Brown, I guess the most dominant player at his position. If you're able to get him in the first round, late first round, it wouldn't be a bad decision. Obviously, he's going to get double-digit touchdowns every year, and barring injuries. But I think I was in that draft. I was going to try to grab him. I had number 10 and number 11 pick, and the guy grabbed him right in front of me at number 9. So he's going in late first round, so grab him if you want him. Greg Olsen, I have him at number 2. He's pretty consistent. He's got, he was in the top 5, I think, in every category, or he was in the top 10, I'm sorry, in targets, catches, yards, touchdowns. For the last 4 years, he's been in that position, so he's a great player. He'll get plenty of targets, even with Kelvin Benjamin, coming back from injury. I don't see Olsen's production dropping off any. Jordan Reed at number 3 he played really well last season. It was the first year that he hadn't missed a significant amount of time, and the results were good. He missed 12 games in the previous 2 seasons, and so his stock dropped a little bit last year, or not more than a little bit, but you were probably able to get him late. He still missed a few games last year, but he's going to be Kirk Cousins' favorite target. I mean, Pierre Garçon really hasn't done much the last couple of years. Deshaun Jackson's a decent receiver, but he's hit or miss. He's usually a downfield threat, and he has big games, and then he has games where he's not there at all. Reed will be there all the time. He'll get a lot of targets. He's a good pick at number 3. A lot of people have him at number 2, but I'm going with Olsen at number 2 and Reed at number 3. I was able to pick him up in that draft that I was just in, which is nice. Travis Kelce at number 4. We had real high expectations for him last year, and he kind of fell short. He didn't get the ball to him. I mean, they had 103 targets, and he did pretty well, but he just didn't get in the end zone that much. I see them changing that. Andy Reid is going to try to probably utilize him a little more. Jamal Charles is he's going to play. He's coming off an injury. They tend to throw to him a lot, and then Jeremy Maclin's the only receiver on that team. You can't name another receiver besides Maclin on that team, so I see Kelce having a good year. Eifert at number 5, Tyler Eifert for Cincinnati. He had 13 touchdowns last year. I would not expect that to happen again. That's a lot of touchdowns for a tight end. It's great if you got him, but I wouldn't have those expectations this year. 11 of his touchdowns were off of 15 targets in the red zone, and I just don't see that happening again this year. I'm not to say that he doesn't have a chance of getting double-digit touchdowns, but 13 touchdowns is a lot. So I see him getting 10. I don't see that being a problem. They lost Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu, and they really didn't gain anything else. So it's basically A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert. So I can see him getting 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Number 6, Delaney Walker. He had a great season, very quiet, where nobody was really paying attention to him, and that was kind of a feather in my cap because when I did my draft analysis last year, I had him having a good year because I knew that Mariota as a rookie they always tend to throw to their tight ends as more of like a security blanket because they have a harder time with reads and they can find their tight ends more easily. He led all the tight ends with targets with 133, and he led the NFL with as tight end with 94 catches. Those are pretty high numbers. I wouldn't expect him to get 100 catches this year, but he'll still remain one of Mariota's favorites. They don't really have a bunch of good receivers there. They did sign Andre Johnson a couple of days ago, but he's on the tail end of his career. But Delanie Walker is solid. Colby Fleener jumps up. He's number 7, and that's basically because he went to the Saints. He was sharing time with Dwayne Allen in Indianapolis, and he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. They have Jordan Hill there, but he's more of a blocker than a catcher. They let Ben Watson go, and now Fleener's the number 1 tight end in New Orleans. Just the fact that they throw as much as they do is a big thing for him. I was reading an interview with Sean Payton, the head coach, and he's really high on Fleener, so that's a good indicator there. There's a good chance that he gets double-digit touchdowns this year, and that's hard to find with tight ends. Julius Thomas at number 8 with the Jaguars. He had those big years in Denver, didn't do very well last year, but that Jaguars offense looks like it's going to be a throwing offense. They got Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, Bortles is a good young quarterback. I see Julius Thomas having a good year. I say he has a chance to get 8 or 9 touchdowns, which is not bad for a tight end. Number 9 in the top 10, I've got Ladarius Green. He's been the backup to Antonio Gates for a few years and really hasn't put up much numbers. But if you've ever seen that guy, and I watched him play in preseason, and he's tall, big, he's a good red zone target. They used Heath Miller a lot. Now that he's retired, Green steps in for him. I think he's going to get a lot of looks. It's a high-flying offense. They throw the ball a lot, and he's going to get a lot of chances. So I think he's going to have a big year, and that's why I have him in the top 10. Number 10 is Gary Barnidge. I was a little, apprehensive about putting him in. He's 30 years old, and he came out of nowhere last year. The previous seasons before last year, he had a combined 44 catches and for his career, and last year he had 79. So that was I don't know if it's a fluke. I guess we'll find out. But he got in the end zone 9 times, which is nice. Robert Griffin III is a quarterback there. I don't think he wants to lose his job again, so he's going to go with the sure thing. And Barnidge is about as close to a sure thing on Cleveland as there is. So I have him at number 10. We'll see if he's a fluke or not. Jimmy Graham. Boy, how times have changed. Jimmy Graham went from being basically the number 1 or 2 tight end in football to just nothing. I just picked him up in the 13th round of a draft, and all indicators are saying that everybody's apprehensive about picking him. You might be able to grab him in the mid-rounds if you need a tight end. He's got a bye week on week number 5. I think they're going to try to do a better job of using him than they did last year. He didn't do much before he got hurt. He missed half the season. But I wouldn't expect to see him as an all-world tight end like he was in New Orleans, but I think they're going to try to concentrate on getting him the ball more often in the red zone because that's what he's been known for. He's real tall. He can get up there. So I have him at number 11, but he's definitely a potential top 5 tight end. Zach Ertz at number 12. Pardon me. Sorry. He had a career year last year. He didn't get in the end zone but twice, and that's not good. But he had the most catches and most receiving yards he's ever had in his career. Doug Peterson is now the head coach for the Eagles. He's been the offensive coordinator for Kansas City for a couple of years where he was using Travis Kelce. So I would expect to see him using Ertz in that same vein where he's getting a lot of looks. So it could be a big year for him. Austin Seferian-Jenkins for the Buccaneers. He's young. He's 6'5", 260 pounds, and he moves well. I think he'll get a lot of red zone targets this year. When he's been injured a lot, he missed half the last year with a shoulder injury. If he can stay healthy, that's a good young offense in Tampa Bay. Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans is a beast. I think they'll be double covering Evans in the end zone when they're up close in the red zone, and I think because of that, Jenkins will get a lot of looks in the red zone and pick up some scrap touchdowns. So he might be a good pick. I would even go as far as to say he could be your number 1 tight end. Antonio Gates at number 14. he's been dropping with age. He missed a few games because of suspension last year, and he had a couple of good games. I think he had 3 touchdown game, but he has a nose for the end zone. I have him at number 14. I wouldn't draft him as my starting tight end, but he would be good as a backup, obviously, or in maybe a flex position. He's going to have some good games here and there, but he faded towards the end of the year. He's getting on. He's the oldest guy on here at 36. But he has a nose for the end zone, and Phillip Rivers really does like him, so he's a serviceable tight end. Number 15, Eric Ebron for Detroit. He has a lot of potential. It's going to be his 3rd year. He hadn't gotten a lot of targets last year, but Detroit, I've talked about it in the other podcasts with other players, is Detroit loves to throw the ball, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Stafford throws the ball 600 times every year without exception. Every year he's throwing it 600 times, and so those balls got to go somewhere. They lost Calvin Johnson, and so Golden Tate moves to number 1. They picked up Marvin Jones. They just recently signed Anquan Boldin, but I don't think that matters. I think Ebron's going to get a lot of looks, so I have him at number 15. He's a potential starting tight end for somebody. Dwayne Allen, him and Fleener both are going to benefit from the fact that they've separated from each other because they were sharing a lot of the looks in Indianapolis. Now Dwayne Allen will be the number 1 tight end because Fleener is not there, and I see Luck coming back and having a good year after having a terrible year last year. And 2 years ago, Andrew Luck had 40 touchdown passes. Those touchdown passes have to go to somebody, and Dwayne Allen will be there to get some, so he should have a pretty decent year. Zach Miller, he came out of nowhere last year. I think Bennett was hurt, and so he came in towards the second half of the season and played really well. He's 31 years old, but Martellus Bennett left. He went to New England, so Miller is the number 1 option at tight end for the Bears, and Cutler tends to throw to the tight end when it comes to red zone situations, so he'll be a good pickup for somebody. Jordan Cameron at number 18 didn't have a very good year last year. He had high expectations going from Cleveland to Miami, and that goes hand in hand with the fact that Tannehill didn't have the year that a lot of people expected. A lot of people expected Tannehill to take a leap from the year before, and he didn't really. I mean, he put up decent numbers, but he didn't, knock the world down. But Adam Gase is the new head coach. He was the offensive coordinator in Denver for the last couple of years. You remember what Julius Thomas was doing there when Gase was the coordinator, and before that he was in Chicago, and Martellus Bennett had a really good season there. So he knows how to utilize the tight end. So I think he'll probably try to use Jordan more than he did last year, and he could put up a good season. Number 19, Clive Walford for Oakland. Oakland I got a good young offense, a good young quarterback in Derek Carr. Crabtree and Amari Cooper will be getting a lot of attention, so I'll leave Walford open in the underneath routes. He should, especially in PPR leagues, I think he's going to rack up a lot of catches. He might not score a lot of touchdowns, but he would definitely be a good secondary tight end for you, and maybe a guy you want to play in the flex position. And then number 20, I have Charles Clay for the Bills. I've always liked him, even when he was in Miami. He's a clutch player in the red zone. Tyrod Taylor's coming on as a quarterback. They've got Sammy Watkins, but that's about it as far as receivers. And I think Clay, because of that, will get a lot of looks. They don't have a whole lot of receivers or options, and Charles Clay has good hands. I've seen him play quite a bit, and he's a good player, so I would expect him to have a decent season. That's the top 20 in tight ends. Unless you're going after one of these top 5 guys like obviously Gronkowski or Olsen or Reed, they'll be gone probably in the first couple of rounds, depending on your scoring format. So you can hold back and wait. I saw Ladarius Green going a lot later than I expected, and again I picked up Jimmy Graham in the 13th round. So you can hold off and still get a decent tight end. But if you don't get one of the top 3 or 4 guys, then you might as well wait and load up on receivers and running backs. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Tell your friends if you guys like the podcast, if you think it's helping. I appreciate that. And I would appreciate you guys tell your friends on Facebook or whatever it is you guys do to spread the word. I could use the word of mouth. And thanks for tuning in. I'll be doing a sleepers one in about a week, and training camp starts in earnest pretty quickly. So let's hope that our players don't get hurt. Thanks for tuning in. This is Jeff. I'm out.